Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 3:25:22. The glories of devotional service. Kapila Dev speaking to Devahuti. Mai ananyena bhavena
Mayanamina Pavina
Tim Korvanti Ye Dridham Matprate Chakta Karmanas Chakta Svajana Bandavaha Maya Nanyena Bhavena
Mayanina Pavina
Bhaktim Korvanti Ye Dridham Matprate Chakta Karmanas Chakta Swajana Bandhavaha. Translation: such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Report. A person in the renounced order of life, a sannyasi, is also called a sadhu because he renounces everything: his home, his comfort, his friends, his relatives, and his duty to friends and to family. He renounces everything for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A sannyasi is generally in the renounced order of life, but his renunciation will be successful only when his energy is employed in the service of the Lord with great austerity. It is said here, therefore, Bhaktim Kurvanti Ye Dridham. A person who seriously engages in the service of the Lord and is in the renounced order of life is a sadhu. A sadhu is one who has given up all responsibility to society, family, and worldly humanitarianism simply for the service of the Lord. As soon as he takes his birth in the world, a person has so many responsibilities and obligations to the public, to the demigods, to the great sages, to the general living beings, to his parents, to the family, forefathers, and to many others. When he gives up all such obligations for the sake of the service of the Supreme Lord, he is not punished for such renunciation of obligation. But if for sense gratification a person renounces all such obligations, he is punished by the laws of nature. Well, fortunately, Prabhupada has framed this discussion in terms of the sannyasis, because otherwise we lose about 90% of his audience, because many people are not sannyasis. But, so it's not that a sadhu is only a sannyasi, that's not being said, but one who is a sannyasi or in the renounced order of life has very singular responsibility. Or Maya Ananya Bhavena Bhaktin Kurvanti Dridham. The emphasis that Prabhupada places is on the sannyasi, I think it's worth including the message that in many cases Prabhupada would say that is a grahasta who lives by the principle of regulated sex and regulated association with the opposite sex, that also falls in the category of a grahasta sannyas or grahasta brahmachari at least, because brahmachari meaning celibacy and so forth. The emphasis, well, there's two. One is the ananya bhavina, mai ananya bhavina, with undeviated mind, and ananya bhavina, with undeviated mind, bhaktim kurvanti. They engage in bhakti with undeviated mind. It's very similar. The language is different, but the concept and principle is very similar to Bhagavad Gita's concept of 241 Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is indicating the same idea of Yavichari Bhakti. Where intelligence is singular, focused on one thing. Now, focused on one thing doesn't mean oblivious to peripheral things. Focused on one thing means seeing the essence or seeing the Krishna's presence in all things. And the idea of bhakti is to move about in the world with that fixed state of mind, ananya bhavina, with mind fixed on Krishna in devotion. Bhaktim kurvanti yedham, with great, without deviation, yedham, staunch, drita bhakti. So the previous verse, what we discussed yesterday, what was the bhushana or the lakshanas or the characteristics of a sadhu. And then this verse is saying, what does the sadhu do? There's characteristics, and then one who is in such a category, what do they do? So it's also a measurable or an observable characteristic of identifying a sadhu by what they do. There's behaviors, and there's qualities with which those behaviors are performed. It's not just behaviors. It's the consciousness, mind fixed on Krishna consciousness. And again, the principle of bhakti is that Krishna is to be pleased. So this is personalism as opposed to impersonalism, or as opposed to negation of the material. So bhakti, it does not involve negation of the material. It involves setting to the side activities that are aimed at sense gratification. Rather, even those same activities may be performed with this ananya bhavina of consciousness. In other words, he's not indicating to Devahuti she should become a sannyasi or sannyasini or something like that. Although her husband is already gone, because her question is, from the beginning of the chapter, how to stay fixed in my husband's absence and in your absence. So it's just part of life of bhakti that the worldly sense of society, friendship, and love fades. And it can mean that one may start feeling lonely. Now, there's loneliness in the material sense because people don't know how to have a relationship. And there's modes of nature that influence their mind and their sensibility of relationship or interrelationships. But bhakti isn't like that. But there may be, I'm mentioning this because I just got some communication from someone who's feeling like that. They're feeling focused in bhakti and they're feeling lonely. And they're incompatible. If you're acting fixed in bhakti, you're not alone. If you're fixed in bhakti, you're with Krishna, and Krishna is not alone. Just that the picture of what that sangha is going to be different. Or say the same thing in a different way. Manushanam sahasreshu kastya jatati sitaye netatam visiddhanam kastya netivam tattvaha. Those that are at the tip of a mountain top that's very narrow at the top, maybe broader down below and broader down below and broader down below. So out of many, many, many people who are striving for perfection, of those who are striving for perfection, rare is it to achieve it, and those who have achieved it, rare is it to know Krishna. So in that sense, one can feel lonely. But on the other hand, and in the transcendental sense, it's not alone because there's a whole entourage awaiting us. And then how do you associate with perfected souls when you look around and there are not too many perfected souls around? So you associate with like-minded persons, and that is, they're striving as you are striving for Krishna consciousness and striving to please Krishna with body, mind, and words, etc. And so there's going to be differences in how people go about that, and differences of moods as they're going about that, and that's quite okay. There's variegatedness, but it's not loneliness. It's the association that one would like to keep if you're on a sadhu path is very special people. But the other people, there's also a relationship that's with Krishna at the center, and that's extending Krishna's mercy in different ways according to a capacity. So it's not alone. That is, Krishna consciousness is full. But just what that fullness is looks different. Like the saying, water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Or the Beatles song, All the Lonely People. You know, in England or in London or, you know, in any place, there's many, many people. But there's so many people amongst us, so many people are feeling lonely. It's just the modes of nature, not spiritual reality at all. So that's where they come from. And if one is moving towards spiritual connection, then such a person wants sadhu sangha. And how many sadhus are there on this planet? Of course, the numbers, if this sadhu term applies to all devotees, then there's a good number of devotees. But, you know, percentage-wise, compared to the rest of the population, it's a drop in an ocean. So it's pretty rare, pretty special. But those relationships with devotees, the like-minded souls, persons who are Mai Ananya Bhavena, who are trying to make their consciousness and their contemplations fixed upon Krishna. Bhaktim Kurvanti Ye Vinham. So that's special. And then that special association can make one feel full, not lonely. It's a matter of learning how to associate with devotees in a way that it doesn't compromise one's Krishna consciousness, and in a way that's pleasing to Krishna. That's the gift that's bestowed upon the devotees. Because going back to the previous verse, Surada Sarvadehi Nam, friendly towards all living entities, Ajatra Shatrava, inimical to none. So there's not loneliness in that realm. Friendliness towards all living entities. Now, the way that one associates with all living entities, just listening to a morning walk conversation with Prabhupada in Bombay, November 1975, and he was describing the Bhagavad Gita teaching, the Sarvadehinam. No, she's not Sarvadehinam. Samadarshana, there we go, Samadarshana. And he was explaining it in a very interesting, I've never heard it before, way. The bodies, it's not that the pundit can't see differences of bodies. And it's not only that they see that there's the soul within, but it was making the point 3 times. They also see that the bodies are made up of the same elements. Although there's different bodies, there's the Panchabhuta that make up all bodies. So there's the Ekatvam, oneness, there's the seeing with equal vision. There's different bodies with different configurations of the 5 elements. Therefore, that sense of seeing everyone equally or seeing oneness, but primarily the spiritual conception of who they really are. And if one has that conception, who's alone? Because there are living entities everywhere. And the living entities are parts of Krishna. If one sees something that's part of Krishna, you're reminded of Krishna. When there's Krishna consciousness, there isn't a sense of loneliness. You know, I'm speaking about this in part in response to someone feeling a different feeling, feeling loneliness as they're going further in their bhakti absorption. Who do I have to share this with? And blah, 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 blah. I'm feeling lonely. And Krishna conscious at the same time. And my statement is they're contradictory. Krishna is not alone. Radha, Krishna are not alone. And as one becomes more mindful and absorbed in thought of Krishna, Radha, Krishna, they're not alone. So it's a different way of associating than the worldly way, but it's not loneliness. It's Sangha, linking with the Supreme. Go back to this morning verse. The third point. In half of the verse, Prabhupada is paraphrasing a Bhagavatam verse where the verse is saying, if someone does not act in relation to all these worldly responsibilities, yet they're totally focused on their relationship and responsibilities unto Krishna. They're not faulted. Scripturally, they're not faulted. Now, worldly people may fault them, and one should imitate an advanced person. It's so, in other words, all these other persons that one may become attached to or detached from, one can serve them. Just the service, the shape of that service is different. The shape of that service is different. Devotee should know that one of the best services I can do for friends and family and acquaintances, etc., 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 is to become pure in devotion to Krishna, because the benefit derived by others from that surpasses anything that you might be able to give them solace in terms of hanging out or something. That takes a lot of faith, and faith enables one to come to a state of purity, but it's a fact. Benefit immediately goes to those, certainly with bodily connection, family and relatives, etc., but also to those who feel some affinity or affection. And it's nice if they understand, but it's not essential that they understand. Of course, I'm thinking of my family situation, and they've just come to accept I am who I am. They would script me to be otherwise, probably, but they haven't imposed that on me, and it just, I am what I am, and they understand that at least my consciousness is I'm doing the best service for them by becoming advanced in Krishna consciousness and sharing in a way that they're willing to receive, but I don't push my message on them. And, they're not super curious about what my message is anyways, but to the degree that they have some interest, I'm more than willing to share and cautiously, so they don't feel like I'm being pushy or something. But I know, and I think they know that I know that at least I have that faith that is the best service I can do for them. Although, their happiness and their expectations are different. Okay. The screen is, take a look. It's blocked. No, it's got some boxes that are blocking everything. Can you see? Huh?
No, that is
It's just on his computer, it's not everybody else's.
Yeah.
Okay. I will everybody else. Okay. Let's see if there's some discussion. Yes. Do we have a microphone or just speak? Yes, there is.
not that.
When it works, it really works. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Turn it off.
No, this was not on.
It was not on. Okay, now it's on. Okay. Take it away. out of your voice. Go ahead, try.
Those characteristics described in the verse that we visited yesterday.
Yes.
They, in one sense, they appear to be some kind of passive or a demonstration, not showing something like very powerful and a lot of influential, that kind of things. But I'm also thinking they're actually they're the strength.
Oh, yeah.
They're the strength, and that strength lies for Swami to demonstrate those characteristics such as the diksha,
Yeah, correct.
and one who can consistently remain in
It's powerful.
that consciousness. It's actually his strength lies in his refusal to buy in an alternative approach,
Mm.
which is widely available, which is hatred, revenge, curse, counter curse, those kind of things, such as Prahlada Maharaj. Although he has been worshipped by his father in so many different ways, but he remained a good man, and he demonstrated his power
Mm.
by refusal to accept his father's consciousness, does that bifurcation of friend and enemy.
Mhm.
And then other thing that I'm thinking about is these people, their actions are based on the understanding of the some jnana,
Yeah.
based on understanding of their relationship with the Supreme, as well as how everything and anything else in the world is related to the Supreme. And they are the people who feel intensely and care
Mhm.
intensely.
Mhm.
Their love for the family, friend, and society flows from their love for Krishna. And I also like Prahlada Maharaj. In the end, he prayed to Lord Narasimha to give blessings to his family.
Mhm. Now, this morning verse speaks about being detached from all those, so many of those things. So then it requires to properly evaluate what detachment means. Requires transcendental intelligence or transcendental brain. In other words, material attachment is different than material detachment is different than spiritual detachment. Or spiritual detachment and material detachment and spiritual attachment are the same. Detached materially doesn't mean I don't care. Detached materially means I don't see the meaning and purpose of something is based upon some material conception of my sensibilities of what happiness is and what virtue is and so forth and so on, because everyone has some conceptions like all that stuff. But rather that the singular focus, my chananya bhavena, bhakti or abhyabhicharani. So it's that Krishna is to be pleased, and that's where this detachment comes. So it's not, for using this example, it's not that Prahlad doesn't care about his father. He wants to see his father excused. And Lord Sringadev's reply is it's already accomplished, so ask for something else. It doesn't mean I don't care. Detachment doesn't mean I don't care. Just seeing with the vision that Krishna should be pleased. And if I receive something from my father, even he's trying to kill me in so many ways, a bad person, that my well-wishing go to that soul. It's interesting, really interesting. It's reminded of Ramchandra's advice to Bharata when he sends Bharata back. Don't hold animosity towards your mother, because your mother did this to me. So don't hold that animosity. Treat her with affection. She was just misled by Kaikeyi, and so she weak-minded and a little stubborn, and so she got carried away. But don't treat her badly. Don't hold that attitude towards her. Oh. There's many, many, many examples of detachment that is actually attachment to the Supreme. It's a lesson. It's a transcendental lesson. Hard to navigate, but that's the lesson. Anything else?
Yes.
You have something else.
You still remember this Chinese lady who comes to the temple room on Sunday?
Yes, I do.
She shared with me after.
Oh.
She
Okay.
said, you're so kind to ask her. In the beginning, you knows about Krishna. And she replied, yes, I do. At that moment, she suddenly felt that she was so much cared for and surrounded by the word is the Holy Spirit, that tears rolled from her eyes. And she felt she go back home. And she said she didn't really listen to what she said in the rest of the class. She was just so absorbed in that fear that coming from you and the temple environment.
Her eyes were closed and she was looking down. And I and the rest of the class, and I didn't know what that meant. I don't think she was falling asleep. I thought it meant she's trying to listen very carefully to new stuff and trying to process new stuff through the filter of what she already knows. That's what I thought was going on. But now I get this other explanation. So then maybe she can go back and hear the recording. Because I was mindful of her in the audience as a newer person, helping to make things intelligible for a newer person. So she can go back and listen to the recording.
It's such a blessing to come to association of similar people. She said it's such a blessing that she can come to the association of a single person.
Well, it's a blessing to have somebody in the audience that has the radar on, the receiver on. Anyone else?
one person.
Huh?
On the one,
You want to take the microphone?
so. In this verse, we spoke about bhakti is lonely. But also, if you see the other way, bhakti also is for susukham kartam avyayam, right? Like it is pleasurable.
I'm listening.
Yeah. So yeah, again to yesterday's statement when we learned that devotional service is like a dance where Ruchi is the instructor, right? So even here, bhakti, I didn't reconcile that how it can be a lonely one when you take it as a.
I spoke on it in purposefully so that the person who wrote to me the way they wrote to me, they can listen to the recording and hear a more complete response than what I gave them. But it's not just for that person. There are other persons who do feel lonely. And so the message was meant for people who may have that feeling, and my main message is that means their Krishna connection is not proper or not substantial or not genuine yet. You know, maybe on the way, but not genuine yet, because there's no loneliness in that spirit. There are transcendental feelings, but loneliness is not one of them. One may feel separation, but that's not loneliness. The separation is in relation to Krishna, and there's the association of elevated souls available all the time. Transcendental, you know, maybe distance in time and space, but association is immediately available for transcendentalists. So the idea, in summary, the idea of loneliness is a material conception. And the idea of then such a person having a strong connection with Guru, with Krishna or Radha Krishna is in the mind. It's not matured yet. Mind can be very tricky. Watch out. Anything else?
Yeah, good much. Just a sharing, the material detachment can be varied as you progress in the devotional
Yes.
life.
Yes.
Like what I was 10 years back or what I am right now, the perspective changes.
Yes.
From the material, like maybe also with the responsibilities.
Yes.
Which we graduate on, like.
Yes.
Few responsibilities will give up, few responsibilities will take more, where we see as a Krishna's pleasures, we need to focus more.
Yeah. Now, all of that is in the context of bhakti being progressive. And the reality is that sometimes there's slackening in bhakti and it's not so progressive. So in the context that is submission continues enthusiastically, that's dynamic bhakti, and everything expands. You know, the measuring sticks, the guidelines, the standards start to expand. I mean, it's just, you know, here's a simple one: attentiveness. And as one progresses spiritually, the standard of what attentiveness really is starts to become modified. Like, really? That's what attentiveness is? I'm so far. But one maybe have been thinking, I'm being attentive, or, you know, anyway. Making the cooking, because that's something many people do, cooking with devotion. Then there's standards and standards and standards, or attainments of cooking for Krishna. And then the refined taste, both in the ingredients and in the sensibility that Krishna should be pleased. There's a nice Prabhupada story that I heard Jamuna tell me, that he had trained her in cooking in various ways. And so she enjoyed cooking for him. So one time she found this very special kind of, I forget the way it was, she described it, but a very special kind of rice that was expensive and hard to find, and et cetera, et cetera. And she went out of her way to find this special, triple special rice. And she made an offering and brought Prabhupada a meal. So Prabhupada took a grain of rice, put it on the tip of his tongue, chewed it slowly, and described her exactly the type of rice that it was. He didn't say, which shop she bought it from. It wasn't like clairvoyant or something, but it was just his refined taste. That she took it, at least, in addition to Prabhupada was displaying the fact that he has refined taste. He's also displaying that he can appreciate the elements of one's offering unto him, in many, many, many ways. The quality of the rice, and in particular the kind of rice that he was tasting one grain of. Most of us don't have refined senses like that. And therefore, when one is the essence of any service that we may render, the essence of it is bhakti. While the essence of it is bhakti, at the same time, we would like the elements to be very nice. Without giving too much. Yes, Janmashtami is coming. And somebody's going to be doing this, and somebody's going to be doing that, and somebody's going to be doing something else, decorations and planning, this and that. But the elements, because it's not just wanting someone to appreciate, oh, you did such a nice job with your part. It's that Krishna is to be pleased. And showing appreciation to another devotee is part of bhakti life. But the incentive in pure devotion is that Krishna is to be pleased. And one of the symptoms that Krishna is pleased is the devotees are pleased. And devotees aren't hard to please, at least most devotees. Some people are hard to please. But pleasing the devotees is an indication that Krishna is pleased, but the objective is Krishna is to be pleased. And that makes this Maya Ananya Bhave condition met. Of your vicharni. Anything else? Yeah.
I like this point from today's class. Devotee should know that one of the best services he or she can do, that is family, friends, or anyone, is to become pure in devotion to Krishna. The benefit that's derived by that purity surpasses any kind of solace that one can give through the other activities to please. So I was just wondering, devotees sometimes who are very good devotees who can their rounds perfectly, who do serve nicely, are engaged in other activities just to please other devotees who are not yet at that stage of purity, like outings, taking them like every time. And those devotees, set of devotees, enjoy nicely when they are taken outside and everything. But my thought is like, how would it be beneficial, or how this can be purity from the viewpoint of devotee who is serving, and how it can help these all devotees to get better in their spirituality.
I got everything except the punchline. Could you say the punchline again? Therefore, your question is, how, what?
The devotee who is trying to help, I mean, trying to engage others in their tastes,
The question is,
purity. The question is purity of that devotee. How does it affect?
get transferred?
Yeah, like, transferred exactly, or will he decrease, or is he able to pass that purity by giving them what they need?
Well, not giving them what they need
Not need,
necessarily.
but what they desire. Or,
Well, maybe what they desire. It's giving them Krishna. I mean, that's, for example, when I leave here, I'm going to Gitanagari. And the activity in Gitanagari is a new people event. And the idea is to take people from being a new person to, in some aspect or another, depending upon the person, appreciate the gift that comes from devotee association in ways that are meaningful and relatable to them, so that they can, with that appreciation, consider what might be the next step, and then present to them a number of options that would be meaningful and useful to them to make the next step. And there's, so if the event organizers, so I suppose, could make a list of maybe 10 or more different things that those people can do after appreciating sadhu sangha to take the next step. 1, learn cooking and offering. 2, learn how their yoga practice, many of them practice yoga, can be connected to bhakti. Not just make themselves slim and trim, but how that can be useful in bhakti. Or Sri Radhika is going to be doing part 2 of her empathic communication and how that connects to bhakti. Or the 4th is, the introduction to Bhagavad Gita seminar, if they want, or if some persons have already done the introduction, so part 2. Another is taking part, if they want to, in the cow protection program, so they can learn how to, or they can do something to come and help, or something. Or one of the things that I have planned is that the topic theme, because it's meaningful to a lot of people, about relationships. And so there's an exercise at the end, towards the end of the 3rd class. They'll have a chart that shows they're at the center, and then the most important relationships in their life, whoever that may be, in concentric circles going out, and then revisit that, give them some time to fill it out, revisit that. And now, what out of the 3 seminar presentations that you've heard, pick a way or 2 that you can enhance and improve each one of those relationships. And practical. And then go to it. Don't just write it down, but go back to your life and see how you can enhance those relationships. Of course, it's with a spiritual approach, but it's to help them spiritualize something that's important to them. Relationships with people, the ones most meaningful relationships, etc. So the idea is, it seems that your question is, how do you maintain your focus on Krishna while you're reaching out, and how should those people who are being reached out to relate to the person who's reaching out to them? How do you not lose your focus when reaching out? And those who are being reached out to, how are they going to get? You transmit your focus, but according to the capacity of the person you're interacting with, to become more focused, to become more Krishna conscious, Krishna centered, depending, in steps that are comfortable and doable for different types of people.
Yeah, Amritan Prabhu, you can ask.
Amritananda?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
I
Hare
see
Krishna Maharaj. Please
your smile. Let's hear your voice.
Thank you very much for the class, Maharaj. Please accept my humble
Great,
obeisance.
Prabhu.
Worship Prabhupada.
You have to
Maharaj, can I be heard? Can you hear me?
Yeah, repeat, Prabhu. Sorry.
Thank you for the class, Maharaj.
There
Am I
you-
audible?
there you. Good.
Yeah, now yes. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Maharaj, the question is, it's more of a realization and a thought, and I wanted to share it with you and get your perspective, whether my line of thinking is correct. You were discussing loneliness, material loneliness, Maharaj, and I was having this realization that in a material condition, we are all self-centered.
Yeah.
And whatever relationships we have with our friends, family, whatever, is all self-centered because how they make us feel,
Yes.
not how we make them feel. And in fact, even if we try to give them joy, comfort, etc., it's just kind of like a business transaction. Okay, I do this, I'll get this in return. So it is more of that, and also material loneliness is more like a physical association is what the person craves for. And I'm thinking now in spiritual, it spins it the other way around, that it's not for you, it's for Krishna's pleasure. And then when automatically you do it for something, for someone's pleasure, without anything in gain, then every little thing would remind you of that person. So, and Krishna says, I'm the of sharks, I'm the fish. There are so many things, or Pandita Samadarshana. So it was all the state of our consciousness of switching it from being self-centered to Krishna-centered. And in such a state, how could anyone ever be lonely? And in fact, that Vipralamba, the separation, what you described, would be more relishable, if that's the right term,
Yeah.
than being in the physical company. Because physical company, there's only that much of what you do. But when the person is away, your beloved is away, then every little thing, moment to moment, you're going to be thinking of him. And that would give you nectar. So, is this right? Or if there is something else you can add to it, will help us realize
I
more.
bought into almost everything you said, except the last part about separation. The separation intensifies the love or feelings towards someone. It's an intensification of those feelings. The one who's passing through it, however, doesn't find it to be relishable by nature. So it's not exactly loneliness, but it's a sense of being separate. Without the attachment, there's no separate. That was part of the discussion yesterday evening. You can't feel separation unless there's attachment to someone or something. But the separation feeling is not a relishable feeling. It's an uncomfortable feeling, but it's an ecstatic feeling, and it's an intensity. What it does is it intensifies feelings. It intensifies the sense of attachment and connectedness, although counterintuitively, one is feeling separate or separated.
Okay.
A relishable feeling. Now, and if you're Queen Kunti and the Pandavas, then you're just fine with that feeling because it means that Krishna will come. Because Krishna will come when his devotees are feeling that feeling. But while they're feeling that feeling, the feeling is not a lovely feeling. It's an uncomfortable feeling. But it's a transcendental emotion that strengthens the connection.
Mm.
No, that's just the only part of what you said that I wanted to make some comment on, or adjustment maybe. Okay, I see that it's 8:30. I think it's time that we end the class. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Jai.
Yeah.
Jai. Thank you, Maharaj.